Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Collective Clicks podcast. This is your host, Brandon Bateman. And today I'm doing something a little special for you. I went to visit a couple of our clients in Southern California, Aaron and Miquella Gaunt. We talked about how they took their business from $0 in revenue from PPC to 7 figures of PPC revenue in just a year. This first episode's about what kind of decisions were made to make that happen and an overview of the whole situation. And then in future episodes, we're going to dig pretty deeply into different aspects of their business and how they've been functioning with a national real estate model over the past year.
Well, thank you both for being so welcoming, allowing me to stop by your office today. I'm really excited to dig into a lot of how your business works and what has been happening over the past year. I know you've had tons and tons of changes. So if it's not too much to ask, let's just start with like an overview of like what you're doing now and what are some of the biggest things that have changed over the past year.
Thanks for coming by to our office and obviously being a guest into our home. The team was really excited to have you here. So, and obviously just in our short conversations, we've been obviously just learning a lot and get to know you a little bit more. One thing we did when we first started our wholesale company, we just ended off year 4, as you already know, I think we did move along our journey, but like we talked about earlier, a lot of that 4 years was just learning how to do business. I was a blue collar guy before then, fire department, military, and we've just been learning how to do business. So 2022, we did a lot of, as you heard, we really scaled text message and cold calling, that cheaper form of marketing. Right, we were sending out 30,000 text messages a day.
30,000 a day.
Yeah.
Did I hear that right? I'm not.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. At a $5,000 fine per text message.
Yep. We had about 20 cold callers, and we didn't just have. We tried all different types of cold callers. We had cold callers in house. We had we built our own team of cold callers. So we just hired a bunch of VAs and trained them up ourselves. Okay. And we've had outside companies obviously use their cold callers. So we've tried and scaled other types of marketing channels that, a lot of people kind of come into this space and try. Now, obviously there is a graduation phase where we should be, going from outbound marketing to inbound marketing, which obviously that's what we're doing now. Other people call it big boy marketing. So I tell now my team, I say, hey, we're doing big boy marketing, which is PPC and direct mail. This upcoming year, we're going to be really perfecting direct mail. We've always seen a great return on direct mail, but we're going to do it at a high level. But obviously, what we're here to talk about today, because this is what we did in the last year, has been PPC and some Facebook, and we'll get to that as well. We went with you. Obviously, we were very attracted to the idea of hiring out a PPC company that had multiple clients, because you knew how to scale your campaign because of all the clients that you have, all the past experience, and rather than us just jumping in and figuring it out. So we knew to pay you handsomely so that we could excel a lot quicker than it would if we were doing it by ourselves. And also we'd probably crash and burn, because obviously I'm trying to scale the team, run a business. I don't need to worry about this one marketing channel. But the cool thing is, this past year we were only doing pretty much PPC. And we did a little bit of other types of marketing, but we could talk about that later. But it was primarily PPC and trying to perfect that.
I'm going to try to lay out like what I understood happened, and you tell me if I'm understanding this right. So 2022, texting, cold calling, everything outbound, every way that you can imagine that. And it was right at the end of 2022 that we started working together. I think it was like September, November, something like that.
Yeah.
So, and then 2023, you have a year where you're still operating as a business. You're maybe a little smarter, a little bigger team, but things are completely different in your marketing. Did you phase the cold calling out and the texting slowly, or did you do it quickly? And tell me about like what the business accomplished in 2022 versus 2023.
I think we talked about this, and again, this is just me hypothetically talking. It really comes down to, it almost doesn't matter what type of marketing you do. It really does come down to what you're spending in marketing. But for us, in a way, the cash conversion cycle that I know a lot of people like to talk about definitely changed. So when it comes to phasing out cold calling, text messaging, we really phased out cold calling. We kind of like almost did a hard stop on it. We were sick of it. We didn't like the leads. We made a lot of money. We made a good chunk of money through cold calling, but it wasn't the type of, as I built a team, I didn't want to give them these type of leads, right? I didn't really, and also I'm not a big fan of lead managers. We could talk about that, as well. But when it comes to inbound marketing, the big boy marketing that we're talking about, those leads could go directly to your acquisition people. They could now obviously get right on it, and they're the ones who could follow. And the one call closes. Obviously, you don't base your whole, business off that, but you could definitely have those calls. It's a different type of sale. I think I actually heard a podcast with you that you were talking about the type of salesperson. I think it was a story you said you had a client, and this whole team, and it was a great story. The whole team was based off of text messaging and cold calling, and they knew how to close those leads. It was a lot of follow up, and then they went and got PPC. The owner tried to close the deals, and he was the only one closing them. He had to fire his whole team and reteach that, right? That's what I love about having our team, is that when those leads come in, and we make it a whole fiasco in our office. When a PPC lead comes in, we're shouting from the rooftops, new lead. And everybody is calling that lead. Who could be the first one to contact that lead? Because we're about contact rate here, and we know we're spending a good chunk of change on that. And we also know it's a great opportunity because of the type of motivation for somebody to type in, I need to sell my house, from a Google PPC lead. So and then obviously we know that person, whoever answers the call or whoever gets a hold of that person, could probably has a higher chance of closing that deal rather than 50 cold call leads that came in that day and everybody just getting beat up on these type of leads. So
yeah, that makes sense. I'm curious to hear your perspective, Miquella. What's different about how the business looks today versus a year ago?
I think with changing it from going from the outbound marketing outbound marketing to incoming leads, we're putting our efforts, our team is putting efforts in better channels. They're not spending, like he said, they're not spending time calling the 50 leads that came in from text and cold call and getting just beat up. Well, you give me the best offer. You like people that really aren't serious, and now they're actually spending their time on those inbound leads and having better conversations because these people are wanting to sell. Yeah, are they sometimes unrealistic? They're always going to be. But at least now they're actually having conversations instead of just getting yelled at or whatever from the other types of leads. And we still do text messaging. We did scale it back dramatically. I think with there were some changes that happened last year with the vendors that we were using. So in order to send out the amount that we wanted to, the whole pricing plan was just completely different. It was like, well, we're starting PPC, so we might as well just take those funds and dump them into that instead. But you kind of see a different attitude in our team too, because they're not just getting beat up all day. They are, but in a different way. But it's a lot. We're just making sure our efforts are in the right spot.
Yeah, that makes sense. So team morale is a little bit different. Based on what you had told me before, Aaron, it sounds like revenue's in a similar place to where it was the year prior with a similar amount of marketing spend, but you've just completely changed the way that your business is doing it.
Yeah.
And you have pretty big plans for next year. You feel like you're in a more scalable spot now than you were a year ago?
Yeah, when you talk about scalability, one thing and it's something I'm gonna, you'll hear on our own podcast and maybe other podcasts, but one thing I did for 2023, and I'm so proud, is that, because again, by bringing on your company to help our company grow, we wanted to make sure we took care of these leads. Like, we value these leads, right? And I don't think a lot of people value the leads like they should be. So what I did in the beginning of this year is I wanted to make sure I focus on leadership. Obviously, I knew I needed, like John Maxwell says, I needed to raise that ceiling, right? So I focused a lot on leadership. The second one was culture. So with just those things, just those two things, we have built levers in our company to basically hire, retain, train, onboard, right? Those are things that are super vitally important to make sure that as you bring on new people, I could turn a lever with your company, obviously on ad spend, to get more leads to my company, and to know that when those leads come in, we could take care of them and have a great cash conversion cycle and obviously succeed. So this past year, that's like, it wasn't just, obviously revenue is always in first position, but that wasn't almost like the main focus. Our main focus was leadership and culture. And now revenue is just gonna follow, right? It takes time. That's what I think a lot of people need to have delayed gratifications. Don't get me wrong, we had a great year, but we're gonna have even a better year because those are the two things we focused on.
Well, by focusing on that, we worked also on building such a solid foundation for processes and procedures, accountability, scorecards. We call them our stoplight report, to keep everybody accountable, and the numbers are in front of everybody all the time, and they know what metrics they need to hit. And by having it more visual, it's easier to monitor people. They know where they're supposed to be, if they're hitting their goals, if they're not hitting their goals. And we've seen, as long as you hit those numbers, the results are going to come. And so this year really built such a strong foundation that now it is, I mean, we can throw people in those seats because we even have a process for hiring. We're very selective, but they go through what they go through, and the people that we've brought on with this new recruiting process have stuck. And because of that, everything together, when they come in, it's just hit the ground and go. And there's a process in place. There's a script in place. Everything's there, so that now it's just putting people in the seats.
Yeah. No, that's crazy interesting. I've always thought it was interesting how businesses grow. Like, we always think it looks like this, but really it's kind of like this. You like flatten for a minute and then you grow a little bit more. And it's not always reflected in the revenue how much you're growing. I know I've been there that way with my own company before, where you're growing your capabilities, and growing your people, your processes,
100%.
And all those things are the kind of things that affect you over a 6 to 12 month time frame, not like right away.
Jerry Norton actually talks about that. I watched a cool little video, and you probably know exactly what I'm about to say, but he talks about the graduation phase, right? A lot of times in real estate investing industry, and obviously us being a wholesale company, we're sales and marketing. A lot of people, what they do is between I think it's like 1 and 250,000, right? You could really, it's just basically you. You're going to be, holding a lot of that money, and you're going to pocket most of that money. And then there's another phase between 1 and 500,000. And then there's this big jump between 500,000 to $1 million, and then $1 million or so. And then between I think it's 500,000 to $1 million, there's this phase of, that flattening out, right? Because and again, we did 7 figures. We did 7 figures this year. We did 7 figures last year. But there's this flattening out where, you're not going to be pocketing much because you put in so much back in. But then if you could get past that, like you did in your business, then it just skyrockets, because again, you created those levers and dials and knobs that now that are functioning, where all you have to do is pull this, and then now you can take off. And that's where we're at for next year.
Oh, that's why I was so excited to come by and talk to you guys, just because you're at such an interesting spot in the business. And I love what you've been able to do over the past year. What do you think would have happened if you didn't make those changes that you made a year ago? It's a scary question.
Yeah.
I know I feel that way about all the changes I've made in the business.
We definitely wouldn't be where we are, but we're also we're kind of those people that we make decisions quick. We get in and out of situations quickly. We try not to linger in a bad situation, whether it be an employee, a marketing channel, a deal, whatever it is. I think that's something that we're really good at, is we'll cut ties pretty quickly so that we don't go down a rabbit hole. We don't like to just sit and wait. There's things that you sit and wait for, there's others that you don't.
Yeah. No, I like, obviously when you say it and you ask that, when we first got together, I think the market shift was a big thing that comes to our mind when we first got together. Interest rates spike, right? Buyers start backing out, et cetera, right? I would say that, by switching over to inbound and mostly focusing on that, our company would have leveled out and stay leveled out if we kept focusing on the outbound, right? But by focusing on more inbound marketing, hotter leads, we wouldn't be where we are today, and we were able to scale along. And also with that leadership and culture we talked about earlier, we're able to more solidify that as well with inbound leads.
Yeah, if you think about it, your revenue may have been stable between the 2 years, but your revenue per employee went up really significantly if you had a team of 20 cold callers.
Yeah.
That's how much of your day do you think that took up?
Well, we put somebody in place. So we put another VA in place of all of that, but it was still a good chunk of the day, because there were still other questions that if the person handling it couldn't answer, then they were coming to us, and then finding out that somebody was putting in fake leads to boost their numbers, and it was just it was just stuff you couldn't control. There's a lot you can't control, but it was a lot of headaches.
Yeah. So let me summarize it, make sure we're on the same page. So you kind of had the grind phase. It's been 4 years since you started the business. grind phase for a little bit. 2022 was your first bigger revenue year. 2023, you're switching to big boy marketing. Right?
I know you like that.
Yes. Yeah, I'm okay. As long as the marketing channel that I do is the one that's called Big Boy Marketing.
There you go.
You could frame it differently and I wouldn't be as happy, but that's
Yeah.
So, okay, so you're switching to that, and then you've learned a lot about how to build the systems, the processes, and everything like that. So all that considered, if you take what you're doing now and you realistically are projecting that into next year, and you're looking at what you're trying to accomplish, what does that look like? Like, where do you want to be? Let's just say I come by another year from now. What does the business look like at that point?
3x, 100%. We want to do about 3x from what we did this year. And
It's a big goal.
Yeah, I think we can do it easily. When I talk about 3x in revenue and 3x in people, one thing I'm glad I could hop on here and hopefully I can share some value. If you want to build a team, not everybody wants to, but if you want to build a team, there's one thing that that a lot of gurus don't tell you in the master, and that's recruiting. Me and you had a chance to talk a little bit about this offline. How are you finding people? How are you finding good people, right? A lot of people don't know how to recruit good people. And with recruiting, it's just like leads, right? Make sure you're able to you got to put money into marketing to find good leads. You got to find good people, because if I want to 3x my business next year, I need the people. A lot of people don't talk about that.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about having, and don't get me wrong, so I want 5 acquisition people, 5 really, really good acquisition people next year going. And so so we have 2 right now. One just left because of health reasons, and so we're in December 2023 right now. We're hiring 2 more by the end of this month. So we'll go into next year with 4. January we're going to hire a 5th, and by that we should be able to do good months next year, every single, and to handle all the inbound leads. Now, with the type of to sell these leads, we need a strong dispo team. I know I'm kind of getting off track because we talked about what kind of return we wanted to see, but you need a good dispo team. And we do a 1-on-1 model. So with PPC, we could talk about those numbers, but it was like 1 in 10, 1 in 12 leads is a contract. Well, we want to make sure we have a good close rate percentage. Well, you get contracts all day, but are they closing? Are they getting to the finish line, right? So we're doing a 1-on-1 ratio. So right now we have 3 dispo people. And so as we grow our acquisition team, we need to grow a dispo team as well, because we want to make sure because if I could raise that PPC cost, I'm getting all these good PPC leads. I want to make sure that, because my guys could close these PPC leads, right? I want to make sure when they do get the close, that we have enough people that it's going to go and dig deep and work their butts off to find the buyer for that property. And by building our dispo team out and by putting people in place, we have upped our closing percentage dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, that's super neat. Let's run high level over some of the numbers that you have in the business. So 7-figure revenue. What are you spending on PPC each month, and what kind of return do you see on that?
So right now, we just loaded it for the holidays, but we were doing, at the moment, for a couple months, I think for the last quarter, we were doing 26,000 in PPC, Google PPC. We were doing 4,000 in Facebook.
Yeah.
And then for December, we're back down to 20,000. And then going into January, we'll be boosting it back up to 25,000 for PPC.
Okay.
We saw a better return in PPC, and we're seeing a 5 to 6. Our company, now not saying you can't do 10x, but our company, we're seeing a 5 to 6% return every single consistently through months. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I'm excited to dive into. It's a little bit hard to not ask you a ton of questions right now about acquisitions and dispositions and what you've changed in your marketing.
Yeah,
and stuff
for
like that.
sure.
We're going to be digging into a lot of that over the next few hours here, and that'll be part of this series. So I'm excited to dig into that with you guys. And thanks for taking the time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.